The Lord has promised good to me. His word, my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace.
Listen, it's good to be coming your way today. We've always enjoyed coming and being with you, and this is the Christmas season, and I appreciate you watching. I know everybody's got a lot going on, and every family has a lot of things going on, and I appreciate you watching. We're going to talk today about God and some of the things that God did concerning Christmas. We're going to talk about the sovereignty of God, how God is sovereign, and some of the things in the Bible that is really good. There's a verse here in Isaiah chapter 46 I want to read to you. I want to give you just a minute, just take a minute to invite you to come be with us at Lacy Chapel. Go to Henniger Crossing, take 40 West like you're going to Scottsboro. Church will be 3 miles from the crossing. Love to have you. We just look forward to God is blessing our church. We look forward to you coming and being with us. We'd love to have you. Lacy's Chapel at Henniger. Go to the crossing, go 40 West. Church is 3 miles on your left. If you have your Bible and you want to read along with me, I'm reading from Isaiah chapter 6. And I want to read two things here just right quick. It says, "Remember the former things of old, for I am God and there is none else. I am God and there is none like me." Here's what God says. "Declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things which are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do my pleasure." So, what God is saying here in verse 10, he says, declaring the end from the beginning. So, God says in his word, I know the end from the beginning. In other words, God knows the past as well as he knows the future. And that has to be true for all of the prophecy in the Bible to be true. That has to be true. Because some of the Bible and the prophecy are 4,000 years in the future. He says, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do my pleasure. So God says, I know the past as well as the future. I know the end and I know the beginning. This is one thing about God that is, it's just amazing about the wisdom of God, the foreknowledge of God, how God knows the future. I mean, he knows the past, but he also knows the future. And one last time, he said, declaring the end from the beginning. One other quality about God that we want to look at just right quick. And we're fixing to get in the Christmas story, but I want to show you that. I wanted to show you that verse so you understand that God knows the future as well as the past. And he would have to. All the prophecies that have been fulfilled. He told the prophecies a long time. They were a long time in being fulfilled. Like I said, some of them 1,000 years, some of them 2,000, 3,000, even 4,000 years. But not only does God know the future, not only does he know the beginning from the end or the past from the future, we can read in Daniel chapter 4, verse 25, he said, this is what God tells Nebuchadnezzar. And remember Nebuchadnezzar, he was the ruler that walked out on his terrace and see what all my hands have created. He was very prideful. But this is what God told him. He said, they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and shall make thee to eat grass as an ox. They shall wet thee with the dew of heaven. 7 times or 7 years shall pass over thee. Now listen to what God says. Till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whosoever he will. He told Nebuchadnezzar, he said, you'll graze grass like an ox for 7 years until you realize that the Most High, talking about himself, ruleth in the affairs of men. He said, you'll graze grass like an ox until you realize that God rules, that God's in charge, God is in control, and giveth it to whosoever he will. So we have learned 2 things about God here. One is God knows the end from the beginning. And the second thing about God, in Daniel 4:25, God said that I rule. I'm in charge. I rule. So we're talking about the Messiah or Jesus that was to come. And that's what we want to look at first here is Genesis chapter 12. Genesis chapter 12. We're going to look at this verse just real quick. Genesis chapter 12. And these are some really good things here. Genesis chapter 12. We're talking about, this is all about Jesus, but let's read this verse. Here's what God told Abraham. I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curses thee. And in thee, or in thy seed is what you could say. In thee, or in thy seed, shall all families of the earth be blessed. So God was telling Abraham, the whole earth will be blessed through one of your descendants. And in other words, he was telling the Messiah was coming through would be one of his descendants. Well, we can go to Matthew chapter 1. Matthew chapter 1, just real quickly. And this is good stuff right here. Matthew chapter 1. I'm showing you the sovereignty of God, and we're celebrating Christmas. We're celebrating the birth of Jesus. Remember, I just read, God told Abraham, he said, in thy seed shall all nations of the earth be blessed. God was telling Abraham, the Messiah is going to be one of your descendants. The earth will be blessed because of one of your descendants. Well, in Matthew 1, it's talking about Jesus. And it says, the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. So, the first thing it says in Matthew chapter 1 about Jesus, that he was the son of Abraham. Well, God told Abraham, in thy seed shall all nations of the earth be blessed. Well, God told, like I said, these are just notes in my Bible, but the notes in my Bible says the year that God told Abraham was 1921 BC. So we're looking at almost 2,000 years. Almost 2,000 years from the time that God told Abraham. From the time that God told Abraham that through your seed shall all nations of the earth be blessed, till it came to pass was 2,000 years. Right at 2,000 years. So, you think about this. Remember I read to you where the Bible said that God declares the end from the beginning in Isaiah 46:10. Think about this. Of all the nations, we're talking about the sovereignty of God, the foreknowledge of God, or the wisdom, you wouldn't say the wisdom of God. Out of all the nations, out of all the men in these nations, out of all the people of the earth, God told one man, Abraham, he was saying the Messiah is going to be one of your descendants. He's going to come from your family tree. And what are the odds of God telling one man, he told one man of all the men on the earth, he told one man, Abraham, through your seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. He was telling Abraham the Messiah is coming. He's going to be one of your descendants. Think of that. Of all the people on the earth, God told one man, Abraham, the Messiah is going to be one of your descendants. Well, Matthew 1:1 says that Jesus was a descendant of Abraham. That was fulfilled right at 2,000 years later. You know, like 1950, 1954, almost 2,000 years. So we see that everything that God told Abraham, it came to pass. It was 2,000 years later, but it came to pass. Now we can go to Genesis chapter 17. We'll go to Genesis chapter 17. And we can look at this verse, Genesis chapter 17. And read this verse, Genesis 17:9. Here's another verse. And God said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant therefore. Genesis 17:9. Okay, here it is. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall have a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and his seed after him. So God said, Sarah thy wife told Abraham, shall have a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant. So God is telling Abraham that as the Messiah is coming through your seed, it will also come through Isaac's seed. That's what God is telling Abraham. Well, you can turn your Bible to Luke chapter 3 and verse 34. And here's what it says. It just says, it's telling about the ancestry of Jesus. It said, which was the son of Jacob, which was the son of Isaac. So we see that everything that God said, God is nailing it down. God had already prophesied it. And this is right at 1900 years later. So God's prophecy about Abraham, the Messiah would come through his seed, was 2,000 years later. Right at 2000, and to Abraham, it was also, to Isaac, Abraham's son, it was also prophesied, and it's right around 1900 years later. And this, you may not see this as being significant, but you take all the families of the earth, and God said, the Messiah's coming through your family. And well, Abraham had other children, but God said it's going to be through Isaac. The odds even become greater when you pick out one man on the earth, and God picked Abraham out and said the Messiah's coming through your descendants. Well, Abraham had other children, but he said Isaac's going to be the one. It's not going to be Ishmael, it'll be Isaac. Isaac's the one the covenant is going to be with. Well, then you can go to Numbers chapter 24. And this is good stuff right here. This just, remember I read earlier where God said he declared the end from the beginning. And when we read the Christmas story, we're reading about prophecy that was fulfilled. Prophecy that was fulfilled. You can look at Numbers chapter 24, verse 17. Man, this is good right here. God's even going to go down another step. He promised the Messiah is going to come through Abraham. He's going to come through Isaac. But then he said he's going to come through Jacob. He's not coming through Esau. He's going to come through Jacob. So the odds get greater. So you see that God picked out a man and said the Messiah would be his descendant. Then he would pick out the son in that family, which the Messiah would come through. Then when you get to that family, that guy would have several sons, but he said, right, here's the son. See, God, he pinpointed it in prophecy, the Messiah's language. He pinpointed in prophecy, and you have to really kind of know the Bible just a little bit to understand this. But it just didn't happen. God foretold this 2,000 years ago. He'll be a descendant of Abraham. Well, Abraham had Isaac. Abraham had Ishmael. It wasn't going to be Ishmael. It's going to be Isaac. Then Isaac, he just didn't have one son. He had Esau. He had Jacob. But God said it's going to be Jacob. Here's where God said it'll be Jacob. Numbers chapter 24, verse 17. He said, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob. Is this not wonderful? God is even telling which one of Isaac's son the Messiah is coming through. So there shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Seth. So in other words, he's telling us in this verse that Jesus is going to be a descendant of Jacob. So God has went down. Now see, this is good stuff. God started one man. He had sons. He picked Abraham. He picked this one man among thousands and said, Messiah will be a descendant of Abraham. What's the odds of that? Of all the men on the earth, God said he's going to be a descendant of Abraham. That man have sons, but he'll be a descendant of Isaac. Well, Isaac had sons, but he'll be a descendant of Jacob. God told all this. Man, this is exciting. If we understood, if we understood what God told Nebuchadnezzar, he said, you'll graze like an ox for 7 years till you realize that the Most High ruleth in the affairs of men. If we understood that God is in control, that God is in control. I know we worry and we fret and we have a lot of anxiety. But if we really realize that God is in control, he's got it. He's got it. He's in control. Jesus said, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. I'll be with you always, even to the end of the world. If we got that God is in control. Well, here God tells Jacob, Isaac's son, he's going to be a descendant of Jacob. Well, go to Matthew chapter 1. Let's see the fulfillment of that. Matthew chapter 1. See, this is why the birth of Jesus is so excited, because we see the fulfillment of all of these Old Testament prophecies. And Jacob Jesus been born, been a descendant of Jacob, that was prophesied 1,452 years. That's, like I said, what the notes in my Bible said. So, man, this is great stuff. This is great stuff. I mean, we see exactly how accurate God is, and God's telling the future. Well, Matthew 1 and 2. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac begot Jacob. It's telling Jesus' language. And it puts Jacob right in here. But this is one of the best ones right here too. Also, it's Genesis. Remember, Jacob had 12 sons. Well, God's fixing to pick out, he's fixing to pick out which one of his sons the Messiah's going to come to. This is wonderful stuff right here. Genesis chapter 49, verse 10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. There he is. Nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come. See, he tells us in Genesis 49 and 10 that the Messiah is going to come from the tribe of Judah. Well, is this not? Jacob, he had 12 sons. But God tells in Genesis 49 and 10, and it's right at 1,700 years before Jesus is born. God says he's going to be a descendant of Judah. So we see in prophecy, God said he'll be a descendant of Abraham. Abraham had sons, but God said he'll be a descendant of Isaac. Isaac had sons. God said he'll be a descendant of Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. Now listen to me. Jacob had 12 sons. And 1,700 years before Jesus is born, God said he'll be from the tribe of Judah. I mean, God just nailed it down, nailed it down, nailed it down, nailed it down, and nailed it down. The Bible said, he told Nebuchadnezzar, you will graze grass like an ox until you realize that the Most High ruleth in the affairs of men. Do you realize I'm in charge? See, only God could do this. Only God could give these prophecies. You just think real quick what I'm saying. It goes from 1,700 years, it goes to 2,000 years. And this is prophecy. That God is telling the language of Jesus, of the Messiah. He'll be a descendant of Abraham, of Isaac, of Jacob, of Judah. Well, we say, well, why is this important? Because Jesus was born, and I'd like to look at that real quickly next week. Jesus was born exactly where God said he'd be born. Here's a shocker. Jesus was born exactly when God said he would be born. All of that's in prophecy. Every bit of it. All Jesus did was fulfilled what God said he would do. That's all Jesus did. He fulfilled every single thing that God said he would do. When you say, well, why is that so important? Jesus said, let your heart not be troubled. You believe in God. If you believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself. See, that's prophecy. When Jesus said that, he hadn't left. But he was telling them, I'm going to prepare a place for you. That was the future. I'm leaving. I'm going to leave. I'm going to prepare a place for you, and I'm coming back for you. That's prophecy. Well, everything else the Word of God says is true, but that's true also. And that gives us hope, and that gives us joy. My time is out. May God bless you. Have a great holiday. Goodbye.
There's a peace I've come to know. Though my heart and flesh may fail, there's an anchor for my soul. I can say it is well. Jesus has overcome, and the grave is overwhelmed. The victory is won. He is risen from the dead, and I will rise when he calls.